Hello and welcome. With Modern Horizons 2 just around the corner and with the usual set review that's gonna take hours coming on Twitch when all the cards are going to be revealed, I thought it could be a fun exercise to look through the review of the original set and spot cards that I misevaluated the most. Evaluating cards can be a tricky task, and certainly while doing reviews of many sets I have done my fair share of mistakes, thinking that cards are going to see a lot of play when they turned out to be basically unplayable, or thinking that underrating some cards that end up being format defining. So the context definitely matters, and at the time of the original review, Modern was still kind of a combo format. Faithless Looting and Mox Opal both were legal and were pretty defining as to what is cool, what is allowed, etc. It did take a while until Modern changed into what it is now, which is an actually fairly fair format. That, when combined with my combo player bias, as that's my favorite way of playing the game, certainly clouded my judgment when rating many cards. So without further ado, let's move to the list. First card I would like to mention is going to be Seasoned Pyromancer. It's not really a card that I was super wrong about, but in my original review, it ended up receiving a 3 out of 5 woke canisters rating. So I'm going to give it 3 woke canisters out of 5. Because it looks interesting to me. I'm not super excited, and that was largely because I was focusing around cards usage as a graveyard strategy enabler. In that role, being a 3 mana card, etc., it doesn't perform as well. Where it truly ended up shining in actual play is more grindy decks, more mid-range red decks like Red-Green Ponza or Mono-Red Prowess Obosh decks, or some Red-Black midrange decks. In all of those more grindy strategies, Seasoned Pyromancer, just as a draw engine, is very frequently a card that you fear the most that your opponent is going to draw. Focusing on the broken usage of the card and not putting my full attention on how to use it fairly caused me to underrate the card and think that it's gonna be performing worse than it ended up doing. Again, it's partially because of the bans throughout the years and like overall power level maybe being lowered a little bit, but a revised rate that I give to Seasoned Pyromancer is definitely a very strong 4 out of 5 woke canisters. Second place on the list is going to belong to Arcum's Astrolabe. This innocuous little artifact got me pretty good. Requiring a snow mana on turn 1 seemed very daunting to me, but it turns out that for fetch mana bases, it really couldn't be easier. Well, it took a while for players to start actually putting Astrolabe in their decks. First as a artifact that combined with Ursa and some other stuff, then just as a mana fixer in more and more decks. It became apparent that playing a fetch land, basic land mana base with Astrolabe actually produced, in many cases, better mana and more resistant to interaction mana than you would have gotten otherwise. So after a while it became apparent that Astrolabe is more akin to Gitaxian Probe than it is to Prophetic Prism. Unfortunately, my original rate of Astrolabe is lost to time. That part of my original Modern Horizons review has been lost, I don't have access to it. But seeing as it's banned in multiple formats, it's definitely a clear 5 out of 5 woke canisters right now. And I definitely rated it much lower than that. In third place comes Archmage's Charm. In my original review, I was again very daunted by the cost. Blue, a 3 mana card, how are you supposed to cast that? And focusing and tunnel visioning on that a lot, I ended up rating this card as a 2 out of woke canisters. Maybe some people will play like 1 copy here and there. I give it 2 woke canisters out of 5. In my words, expecting to see 1 or 2 copies occasionally. I was wrong. Since then, of course, again, after many bannings, blue control decks have become one of the better decks in Modern in general, and many of those decks throughout the times are supporting varying amount of Archmage's Charms, frequently just going with the cool 4. The flexibility is just unmatched, very nice self-supplementary set of modes. Normally, passing the turn with a counterspell is costly if your opponent doesn't play anything, but then your card can be just cast to draw 2 cards. Really perfect, and then on top of that, the steal a 1-drop mode is just an icing on the cake where it doesn't come up all that often, but when it comes up, it's pretty devastating. So obviously, the card is very powerful, and the cost is much less of an issue than it used to be. Again, at first Astrolabe helped with fixing mana for the Archmage's Charm, then Triumphs got released, which also play a role in supporting a blue cost. but even for a regular Shockland mana base, it was much less of a hassle to support this mana cost than I thought. My revised rate for the card is going to be 4 out of 5, a very strong card, very powerful fixture of the control decks. And the final card that I would like to put on the list is Mirrodin Besieged. This one is a little bit funny. My original rating for it was 4 out of 5 woke canisters, and frankly the biggest embarrassment for me as a card reviewer. I'm giving it a completely unbiased rating of 4 woke canisters. Back when MH released, KCI was still freshly banned, so I still remember that deck. I remembered playing combo decks that were using Sai, Master Top Priest as a sideboard juke that was very effective. With Mirrodin Besieged, I imagined that having a split card between a Sai and a opportunity cost less kinda win condition in your deck, I thought such a combination is really attractive. In truth, there is a vast amount of difference between a 1/4 creature that makes top tiers and that can draw cards with said top tiers later on, and an enchantment that produces mirrors with no keywords that just sit there and don't do anything. It's obviously apples and oranges. My strong combo liking bias also kicked in here. I really wanted decks that would use Mirrodin Besieged as a win con to be present. I would really like to be able to mill my deck with Grinding Station to have 15 artifacts in my graveyard and then end of turn activate the ability that just says win the game. In truth, the ability is so narrow and so hard to activate that it might as well not really be here. As evidenced by the absolute lack of play that this card has seen after Modern Horizons release, it is pretty clear that the revised rating should be 1 out of 5 WoW canisters. And that is the list. I'm excited for the Modern Horizons 2 spoilers coming in the next few days. I would be really interested if we're going to see more Hogak level turmoil happening in the format, or if it's just gonna be more grindy bombs like Seasoned Pyromancers or Captain Ranger of Eoses. We'll see. In the meanwhile, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this type of content, if you found this video fun to watch or not. Your opinion is valuable to me as I'm going to be experimenting a little bit with the type of content that I post on this channel. Remember to hit the subscribe button if you would like to see more of my videos, and take care. See you in the next one.